Building your business alongside your significant other can be tough. That's why today we're excited to introduce you to Matt and Liz Faircloth, who share their real estate story of building their investment business alongside each other. I really think you're gonna love this interview. Before we get to it, I do wanna invite you to download our free book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, which you can get for free by joining BiggerPockets, the real estate investing social network. Just head to BiggerPockets.com or click this link right here to join. And with that, let's get to the interview with Matt and Liz.
This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, Show 88.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host, Brandon Turner. What's up, Brandon?
Not much, Josh. How are you this wonderful week?
I'm actually sick right now.
Oh, you're always sick. What do you think?
I'm not always sick. Scott here in the office was coughing all over my desk and got me sick. So I don't know.
I think it's just the life of parents. Parents are always sick because their kids are gross.
Yeah, this is true too. Although my kids are not gross, but yeah,
the kids are always sick though. They're like at school touching doorknobs and stuff that everyone
picking noses.
Yeah. My cats are so much cleaner than kids. It's amazing.
Oh, I doubt it. Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. My kids don't crawl into the little kitty litter and then stand on my kitchen counter where I cook dinner. Doesn't happen. That's just nasty.
Yeah. Well, cool.
But anyway,
we got a great show today. Definitely an awesome interview with a couple, an actual married couple who's investing together. So that'll be cool.
Married couple.
I know they're actually married and they're investing in real estate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It is. It's a good show. And we're going to get to that right after today's quick tip.
All right. So today's quick tip is maybe something obvious, but I want to just emphasize it today, is if you have a question about your real estate business of something, don't try to sit there and try to figure it out on your own. I've been doing that forever. I've been wondering, how do I get ACH transactions on my website? I've been wondering that for months and months and months. All of a sudden, yesterday it occurred to me, Brandon, just go put a BiggerPockets forum question. How do I get ACH transactions on my website? And so I put it up there and I got 8 replies yesterday alone and some really good stuff in there. So anyway, if you have a question that you're right now in your business, you're wondering about, go today and go make a forum question, ask it in the forums and see what people say. That's my quick tip.
That's great. BiggerPockets.com/forums. And there is no such thing as a stupid question. I mean, we all look at Brandon here. Well, let me use a different example.
Thanks.
No, anyway,
that was a great question. That was a good question.
I think it's a good question. And it just shows listen, I mean, Brandon's been around. He's talked to a million people. He knows, more than probably 99% of people out there. And yet he doesn't know anything. I mean, none of us know anything. We're all learning. We're all trying to figure this out. So there are no stupid questions. Go ahead and ask it. And I guarantee you there are other people who may be thinking the same thing and not asking the same question. So that's today's quick tip.
Yep. And it's free. You don't have to have a pro membership to make a forum post. So people just go ask a question. It's free. Do it today.
Yeah. BiggerPockets.com/forums.
Yep. But speaking of our pro benefit of the week this week, I want to talk about real quick. It's something that we have talked about before, but I just wanted to emphasize BiggerPockets perks. It's BiggerPockets.com/perks. You can get discounts, promotions, stuff like that. You can save a ton of money. So if you are a pro member and not taking advantage of that, head over today, see what you can get discounts on, and you'll probably save a ton of money. So.
And we're adding new companies. And if you're a company that has a perk, get in touch with us. BiggerPockets.com/contact.
There you go. All right. Cool. So let's get to our interview today. You want to introduce our guests?
Yeah, awesome. All right, so today we've got Matt and Liz Faircloth. These guys have been hooked on real estate since reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in 2002. They have been building their business up little by little to eventually come up to over 100 units now. They've done around 15 fix and flips. They live south of Trenton, New Jersey. They've got commercial properties. They've done development. They've done pretty much everything. They've been really busy and they've got a lot of great information to share with us today. Their mission statement is to revitalize urban America and to transform lives through real estate. All right, before we bring those guys in, let's really quickly hear from today's sponsor.
All right, our sponsor today is 99 Designs.
Do you need a logo, business card, website, or flyer for your real estate business? 99 Designs, the world's largest graphic design marketplace, makes it easy to get a design you love. So just go to the website, tell them about the design you need, and pick a price package. You get multiple designers to compete for your business, and best of all, you get to pick the best design. So visit 99designs.com/BiggerPockets and get a $99 power pack of services free. So again, check it out at 99designs.com/BiggerPockets.
Awesome. Yeah, those guys are great, man. We actually got the original BiggerPockets logo done from the predecessor of 99 Designs, from the company that became 99 Designs, and we've used them for other stuff. It's a really cool concept.
It is very cool. I like it. So
yeah. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, definitely check them out. 99designs.com/BiggerPockets.
all right, there we go. Well, let's get this going.
Cool. Let's go bring these guys on board. All right, Matt and Liz. Liz and Matt, welcome to the show, guys. It's great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today, including rental properties. We're going to talk about flips. We're going to talk probably about raising money and all this stuff. But before we do, let's just start very, very early on. How did you get into this game of real estate?
It's an interesting story. We got started when we were dating. Back in 2002, Liz and I sat down with a few friends and played Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow board game.
Nice.
And at the time, I was working as a traveling salesman, and just our minds were blown by this game. And it just really showed us the possibility of financial independence, passive income, and being able to lead a life that we really wanted to through real estate as a vehicle. And first purchase was a single family home that I lived in, which you guys would call the house hack, right? Yep. I bought a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, had a couple of my buddies move in with me, and I was making $60 a month, and I was living there for free. And it just completely just really set it into stone what the possibility of real estate was for us. And we started getting educated. We took probably about a year and took seminars, read books, networked before we made our next investment purchase. And then from there, we bought a duplex. I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and so we bought a duplex in Philly. And that was our first rental deal. We bought that one while we were dating as well. We started buying properties before we were even married, which was a bit of a risk, but it was cool.
And you guys bought the properties together, both names on it, or
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a big step for us because we actually purchased it. We had our first private money loan from my father, but it was a big risk. We were engaged, but we weren't married, so we both had to, take the step and make it happen. But
this feels like When Harry Met Sally.
It does kind of, doesn't it? Yeah.
So, I think the first thing I want to really get into is working together in real estate, and we've had a couples, over the 88 shows. And it's always interesting to get that perspective. I think because, it really is so important to be in line with your spouse. If you're not on the same page, things could go horribly wrong just in terms of you're going to be fighting at each other's throats. So let's kind of start there. What does it take? What does it take to work together? And frankly, what does it take to work together? I mean, you guys jumped in without even being together, right? I mean, you were together, but you weren't together. So, can you guys talk about that?
Absolutely. I think that's it's a great question. It's something that we've talked a lot about, because we've shared that with other couples. But we sat down in 2004 when we bought our first duplex, and we developed a plan together. We developed our, I call it our why statement, digging really deep to get really clear on why are we even investing in real estate? I mean, we both like the vehicle of real estate, but getting really connected with what we're doing and why we're doing it. When we first started dating, we had such similar values about entrepreneurship, eventually wanting to, work for ourselves and build a business. And we both had the same, spiritual values as well. So we believed in, having faith and just persistence and what have you. So we developed a business plan together back in the day. Yeah. We actually just found it because it was literally 10 years ago. Wow. And what was really neat was we're looking at this plan that we wrote when we knew nothing. And I have to tell you, I say 8 out of the 10 things we wrote down, we've achieved.
We're not that far off. Yeah.
So,
10 years ago. Yeah.
So it was really, really neat. You know about goal setting, but then when you see it in black and white. So I would say that's one thing. Number two, I've had various roles over the years. Matt has always kind of been, our kind of president leader, of the business, but I've always been either a, strategic kind of advisor. I've been actually in full-time working with him, part-time. I mean, I've literally worn every hat. And I can say that the key is to really, just know your roles and keep things separate and just communication, open, honest, really clear communication.
Yeah.
Interesting. I used to work with my wife. She ran a school. She was my boss. And this was before we got married. Yeah, I thought it was fine. I didn't have a problem, but people would always come up to me and say, Josh, how the hell do you do it? I mean, you're with her all day at work. You go home, you're with her. Aren't you guys sick and tired of each other? I said, it works great. We're not tired of each other at all. But I do think it can be challenging for some folks to do that. So how do you guys separate the work and play? How do you separate business from personal? Is there a separation for you, or is it all just kind of combined?
Well, as Liz said, we did it once in 2009. Liz actually quit her job and worked with me full time, and that did not work out too well because, because we were kind of on top of each other. We were, our roles were very intertwined. We didn't have clarity of roles. And so we ended up kind of running interference on each other a lot. And it caused a lot of strife, to be honest, in our marriage and our business and everything.
Sure.
And so she went back to work in 2010. And now I think that the difference is we work very well together. And the difference is that we have a bit of separation in that Liz has certain projects she's working on. I have certain projects I'm working on. And there's certain things that we interact on. And I also we really understand and respect each other's skills. Yeah. So Liz really understands people. I mean, she just knows how to communicate with people and what really drives people. And so when I'm having a personnel issue, she's the first person I go to. Gotcha. And she also has other skill sets that I really look for when I need a certain thing in the business, and it's vice versa as well. So I think we have a bit of that, separation. So we can kind of do our own things. So we're not like breathing down each other's neck, and because that didn't work the last time we did it. So.
Yeah, you don't seem to have very good people skills, Matt.
No, awful. I spit on people is what I do. That's how I communicate.
So I mean, you guys eventually found those roles, right? I mean, this wasn't something. Obviously, this wasn't something that you guys just started with, right? I mean, it took time to figure that out. Do you have any recommendations for people? If we've got spouses listening together or individually, do you have recommendations on how folks can work together? What has helped you beyond the, I guess, figuring out what your skill sets are and kind of making sure that you're not kind of overlapping or second guessing one another?
Yeah, I would say two things. Do things that you're good at and that you enjoy. Yeah. When I started working with him in 2008, I took on the bookkeeping of our business. And again, that's something that I'm not good at and I didn't enjoy. Right? So, and I just screwed things up all the time. I forgot to pay mortgages.
That was a mess.
I mean, it was horrible.
That's not good. Yeah,
not
that's
good.
Bad.
But I didn't have a handle on it. I'm not a numbers person, and so anyway, I think being good at something and enjoying it and bringing your real passion to a task is key. Now
that we're on that subject, I want to kind of drift towards what you just said about accounting. And I know I probably was going to bring this up way later, but you mentioned it now. First you did the accounting, like the bookkeeping. Then you found you didn't like it, because this is the exact same situation that my wife and I are in right now. She does the accounting for us, the bookkeeping. She doesn't like it. She's good at it, but she just hates doing it, I feel like. How do you guys do it now? Matt, do you take over that part of things, or do you outsource that? How does that look?
Now, for me, I put my focus on building the business. So I focus all my time on raising money and finding new properties to get into. But I have a full-time office manager that works for us now that does a lot of that. But before I even I'm not just saying that, if you don't like financials, hire a full-time employee to do it for you. But what we started with was just hiring a bookkeeper, and we were able to find one at a very reasonable rate. And that was her skill set. She was great at it. In the beginning, we were paying her like 10 hours a week for managing something like 35 properties is what we had at the time. And she did a great job with it. And we've since expanded her role to where now she's my office manager. But we started with a bookkeeper. And there's even bookkeeping companies that will, run books for you and that kind of stuff. So
what exactly do they do? I mean, we'll talk about your business model a little bit, but your business model and mine are pretty similar. And so, obviously I use these podcasts selfishly, so I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, this is how I roll.
Brandon wants everything totally selfish, but, must be nice.
Yeah. So I want to know, what does the bookkeeper do? And what I mean by that is, so obviously, I mean, you know how it is, like when you're doing a rehab on a property or whatever, you get a ton of receipts going in and out. You get a ton of things. You get, like, at the end of the month, we sit down, and I don't know if I do this the same way as everyone else does, but at the end of the month, we sit down and we look back on our bank statement and we try to reconcile what every single item was. And we're not always sure. And we're like, why did we spend $37.50 at Home Depot that day? I can't find a receipt for it. And then it's just like, is that what a bookkeeper does? Like, I mean, do they call Home Depot and try to figure out what was going on?
It sounds like you're doing hindsight bookkeeping, like you're looking back on the month on the 30th and saying like, okay, this is what happened. Yeah, we do. So I would recommend that a bookkeeper can get you into a position where you're doing proactive bookkeeping, where you're looking ahead, and when a check needs to be cut, it gets entered into the system immediately. And the system is whatever software you're using. We use Rent Manager. You can use QuickBooks. You kind of have to trick QuickBooks into working around real estate, but there's other softwares out there too. So as soon as I have an expense, it gets entered into my accounting software and it gets coded. So it's, okay, what is this? Is this framing? Is this handyman work? Is this plumbing? Whatever. Is it a real estate commission? Whatever it may be. It gets entered in the system, and then I don't have to look at it again until I run a report at the end of the month to see how we were financially, to run my profitability statement. That's the only time I look back. Yeah. But most of the time, the expenses, as soon as these expenses hit, they're in the system. And so that's what a bookkeeper can do for you. And they're coding things, and so you can run financial reports and that kind of stuff. These softwares will actually let you print checks. So as soon as you put the expense in, you hit the print button and it prints the check out. So you don't even have to handwrite the check anymore. You just sign it.
That's cool. Yeah. I need to do that. I mean, like I've talked about it for years. Like, and I tried for a while. I got Buildium, and then I got AppFolio, and I never really took the time to learn either. I don't know. Like we would start one and then never really jump in the full way. I tried QuickBooks for a while, and in the end, like I've still it's kind of like embarrassing to say, but I still use Excel for all of my bookkeeping, and it drives us absolutely insane every month. Like it's just crazy.
Here's an easy way to deal with that, Brandon. If you don't want to hire a bookkeeper, what you can do, and I used to do this till I pawned it off to my wife, who is not pleased about this either. But for years and years, I literally, if I would spend money, I'd come home, I'd have a receipt in my hand, I'd go into Quicken or QuickBooks, and I'd just enter it in every night. I would literally spend 5 minutes a night to just enter any receipts I had into QuickBooks. That's it. I mean, that's all it takes is the discipline. Your problem is going to be that you have all this backlog of stuff, right? Yep. So what you do is you enter all the backlog in at the end of the month. Okay, get caught up, say, the end of this month. And then on the second, the end of the day on the first, if you've gone out, you've bought anything, you just put those receipts in. And the second you put the receipts in, again, you just make it part of your life. You train yourself, hey, every day, every time we spend money, we immediately put it in, and then it's handled.
Yeah. I bet you there's apps
or just hire a bookkeeper.
Or hire a bookkeeper. And I think there's a company called bench.co, I think they're called. I've been looking into a lot. I don't know if anybody listening to the podcast has used them. I'd love to get a recommendation or what you thought of them. But yeah, they're like, it's like Uber for accounting. And so you can like hire one online, like it's all through the cloud. I don't know. So that's an option as well I'm going to look into, but and it's a reason it's like $150 a month or something like that. It's cheap, which makes me nervous about it. But anyway. So yeah, I definitely think accounting is an issue that a lot of landlords and a lot of house flippers and a lot of just real estate investors in general really struggle with because the mistake I made is I didn't set it up right at the beginning, and then I never really focused on it. So I'm still running it the same way that I ran it 7-8 years ago. I mean, it's a hassle at the end of every month. I mean, it takes us a long time. My wife spends hours and hours and hours every week on that. So anyway,
if I can just say something quick about that too, since we do property management and we also do flipping of property, we use two different softwares. So Rent Manager is great, but you almost have to trick it to enter in the data around rehabbing for flips. Yeah. So QuickBooks, I know,
we use QuickBooks for flips and then Rent Manager for rentals. And the last thing I would say is that you could probably limp by on what you're doing with using Excel and that kind of thing for doing expenses. But the next time you buy a new property, properly entering that into a good accounting software is something a bookkeeper could do for you, because you want to put in something for land value, something that you can depreciate, and some something for fixtures and that kind of stuff, which an accountant could tell you more about and that kind of thing. But bookkeepers can do all that. I mean, it was very complicated to do that if you don't have the skill set. So
that's one of the things that's stopping me now is that I look back and I have to. I have all these properties now that I have to go and back enter in years of information to try to, or at least the year of information to try to like So like it's almost like not worth it. Every time I just get overwhelmed, I'm like, oh, this is so much to do, and then I stop, and I'm like, I'll do it next year.
I'm actually glad that you bring this up, Brandon, because you are probably 95% of our listeners, maybe even more. I mean, I'm guessing most people who are listening to the show are probably not as organized as they should be. If you're one of them, honk your horn while you're listening. But yeah, so, I think it's really important to hear that, listen, this guy, Brandon, oh my God, it's Brandon Turner. And he's telling me he's totally disorganized. Oh, great. It makes me feel good. I'm sure it probably does. So
yeah, maybe.
Take this time, guys. If you're listening and you are like Brandon and you're disorganized, get it together. I mean, really, this is a good opportunity. This is kind of, if you do one thing, if the show does anything for you, get out there, get organized, get Quicken, get QuickBooks, get something, and start to put it together, because you do not want to be Brandon in this case. Yeah. In other cases you might, but in this case you don't.
No, you don't want.
What I would add on to that, the final thing to add on to that, Josh, is that there's only so much time in a day.
Yep.
And if you free up yourself from doing those financials and running the books and that kind of thing, there's so many other profitable adventures you can get yourself into to grow your business. And that's when our business really took off, was when I started delegating and giving activity I was doing, and that Liz was doing, including the books and that kind of thing, that I was able to get into other things.
I could say the same thing about mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could say the exact same. I mean, I hired that guy, Brandon, and he started to take some stuff, and now we've got, I don't know how many full-time people. Things are great, and I can actually focus on what we have to focus on, which is awesome. So yeah, that's really, really, really good advice. Well, cool. I mean, lots of great stuff on working together and delegation. Well, you guys started this thing with a house hack followed by a duplex, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what came next, and what kind of deals do you guys do generally?
So what came next was our first 1031 exchange, which I don't know if you want to put a pin in that and explain what that is or not.
Yeah, why don't you, just in case?
Sure. We sold the duplex in Philly, and instead of paying capital gains tax, which we would have to pay if we just took the money and put it in our pocket, we rolled it into another property. So it's a tax deferred exchange where you get to not have to pay income tax, but you got to take all the proceeds you make on the property and roll it into another investment. There's a lot of rules around it, around time and around money. But bottom line is the new investment needs to be at or above what you sold the prior property for, and you got to roll all your proceeds into it. And you got to do it within, I think it's 180 days. We sold the property in Philly, the duplex, and we rolled it into a pair of 4 families in Ewing, New Jersey, which is not too far from where we live. So we've since acquired more of those 4 families in that block that they're on, and that we've expanded our business to the point where we're probably about 80% residential for our portfolio. We also own, we bought an office building and we converted it into a small business center. So we've got 18 different companies that occupy the building. We're actually sitting here talking to you from it now. So we occupy it ourselves, but we have all these different companies that occupy the space, and it's this really cool networking and social environment as well. It's full of mostly young entrepreneurs that are all doing everything from law firms to not-for-profits to other real estate investment companies that occupy the space. So
interesting.
That's a touch on our portfolio.
Well, so it's like a co-working space.
Yeah, so
yes. But
okay,
yeah,
cool.
It's not an open platform though. So you're not sitting next to the guy that's running the law firm. We all have private offices and everything.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
But if I can mention about that, in 2008, I think we purchased it.
Yeah.
And it's a 10,000 square foot building, and an organization at the time had the space. So they ended up moving out, and we ran the, profit and loss, and Matt showed me that with this, one tenant in this building, we'd be, cash flowing amazingly.
Oh, yeah.
We were both excited, this would be the biggest purchase. Awesome. Well, we ended up just sitting on the property for a while.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, in 2008, and even now, not many companies are looking for a 10,000 square foot building in Trenton, New Jersey.
Yeah,
so
that was a big mistake. It was probably one of our biggest mistakes when we first got started, is we looked at the current snapshot of the market and assumed that would be the market for several years out. And so to give numbers, we bought the building for $50 a square foot, which is a really cheap number for New Jersey. And another good rental number is around $12 a square foot. And if you run the numbers for rent, it would be $12 a foot per year. And that works out to be a really great cash flow for the property. And I showed it to Liz, and she's like, that sounds great. Let's do it. And then 2009 came along, and with what the market did. And so we kind of got tired of sitting on this vacant building that nobody wanted to come and rent from us at $12 a foot. And we had to drop back and punt and change our plan.
And really broke up the building into small offices out of a need. But it was just one of those examples of many times that you think one thing around, this is the right investment, this is the right path, and you kind of learn a new way, and you have to figure it out and quickly.
Figure it out, yeah.
So That's awesome. I think it's so important to talk about that, the ability to be flexible, the ability to adapt your plan. And, I think that's hard for new investors. It really is. Coming in, you say, oh, listen, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. And if it goes wrong, oh my God, the world is going to blow up, right? So, that's why we really try to talk a lot about this, which is, and I think we have the whole last chapter of our Ultimate Beginner's Guide. By the way, biggerpockets.com/UBG is the Ultimate Beginner's Guide. It's a free guide, teaches you all the basics of real estate investing. I believe the last chapter we kind of talk about, having a need and having the ability to adapt and having multiple game plans. So if game plan A goes wrong, have a B, have a C, have a D, just so you can pivot quickly.
Yeah. I like that phrase pivot. I think that's what Eric Reese from the Lean Startup uses that all the time, like the word pivot. And at times you have to change your investment strategy a little bit, just like a basketball player would pivot and move it a little bit different direction. So I like that. That's cool. So tell me about so when you said you divided this 10,000, I have a couple of questions. I want to jump back to the 1031 thing too, but while we're on this, you divided them up into office building. Did you actually build walls in there and put a bunch of different offices? Is that what you guys did to construct it, or was it already like that?
No, well, so yes and no. Some spaces were cut up, and there's this big, huge space in the back of the building that we turned into a seminar room. We put in a projector and a bunch of chairs and that kind of thing, so that people could come and do small, presentations and that kind of stuff. But some of the rooms were already delineated, and we just put separate locks on them, so that the tenants can, you get into the building with a key fob. There's a bunch of common area in the building, and you can walk into your privately locked office space. And we put in some walls to add some. To add a few more offices and everything like that here and there. Yeah.
Are you doing better than you would have, than your projections were with the one tenant? Do you feel like as a multi-use place, are you getting better returns than you were had hoped, or are you getting a little bit less?
Well, it's interesting because you get it's a double-edged sword in cutting up a space like this, because we didn't put private utility, separate utilities in. It'd be hard to put 18 different of everything in each space. So, we bill out CAM, which is a percentage of the utility bill and a percentage of the maintenance to tenants. So we try and pass as much of that along to our tenants as we can, and we get better rent per square foot of the offices. So I might get, $25 a foot versus 12, but it's of this little tiny office space that might be, like a 10 by 10 office that's renting for $250 a month, So by the actual per square foot for what we have, we do better. But you have to factor in all this common area, all these hallways and all these things like that. So had we leased the whole building, that would have all been rentable space. It's not rentable space when you're just renting small offices. So you kind of take a haircut there. We ended up averaging out about the same. But so that's the short answer to your question.
I work in a space like that. Our office here is in a similar type of space, and what they've done, which is I think really, really bright, is they've taken those empty common areas, the hallways, and they basically made those quote floating desks or just kind of individualized desks. So you can literally buy a desk in the hallway. And it doesn't come with it. It literally is a desk. You bring your, I think they'll upsell you. I'm not sure exactly how it is, but they'll upsell you like a locking file cabinet so you can put your stuff in there. But otherwise, the desk is bare. People, they'll leave monitors and stuff. Nobody's stealing their monitors. But it's another way to kind of get rent back on that space. And it's great. This place is completely full. And I look at it, I'm like, man, I'm sitting here paying rent on it. I want to own this space.
What does that cost? What are they getting for one of those floating desks in the hallway?
I think it depends. Somewhere, I believe, between $250 and $450 a month.
That's great.
Yeah. So, here's the nice thing. People who are, upstart companies, I don't want to deal with rent, utilities, all the headaches. I want to pay one bill. I want to make my life really, really easy. So that's what these types of things. Regis is the big national chain that does this stuff. But it makes it really easy. Listen, you guys can come in, you pay X amount of dollars, you pay one bill and you're done. Great. great. And these things are popping up like crazy in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're really, really popular here in town. So I love it. I love that you guys are doing it, and I think it's a phenomenal model.
Yeah. Would you guys recommend other people get into, like, especially newbies, but anybody, would you recommend getting into commercial, or do you think that was a big step?
Yeah, I wouldn't go to say all your newbies to go run out there and buying 10,000 square foot office buildings per se, but you know, I'd be okay with them taking the calculated risk, because what it's allowed us to do is carry a presence for our business. So when people come to visit us, it's, you know, come to my office. So, you know, for the people that are working from home and that kind of thing, we were able to carry a bigger presence of a much larger company by people coming to see and sit in our conference room, and being able to do closings here in the building and everything like that has been really, really cool. And it's been a great opportunity to network as well. The only thing I would say to a newbie is just be sure you run your numbers, and that, you know, the most or all of your expenses are covered by your tenants, and that you as a startup aren't putting yourself into a position where you're having to pay a bunch to be in this schwanky office space, because we are able to occupy it. It doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah.
Because of our tenants. So
it's like house hacking, but for commercial. It's cool.
Right.
So, but anyway, I want to go back to touch on real quick before we move on. I want to touch on the 1031 you mentioned. And again, I'm a selfish person. I'm going to ask a question. I was actually talking with one of my business partners the other day about one of our properties, and we have probably $30,000 to $40,000 of equity in this property after paying the real estate fees if we were to sell it. Like, we'd clear about $30,000 to $40,000 in cash. They asked me, they said, I've heard something about this exchange you can do, a 1031. Should we do that if we sell? And I said, I don't even know, like, how much does that cost? I know what they are, but how much do they cost to do? Is it worth it on a $30,000 profit?
Well, let me ask you a couple questions. What would you sell the house for, the property for?
It's probably, we have about 190 into it, and it's about $140,000 is what we could sell it for. Somewhere between
Remember, he's not in
150.
Jersey, guys.
Yeah, I'm in cheap area.
Right. Yeah. That's probably like an 8 unit or something like that for 140. Right?
It's a triplex.
I'm so jealous. Yeah. Right. So okay, at 140, if you're making 40 on the sale or 30 on the sale?
Between 30 and 40. I think we have about 90 into it, and so, you know, if we got 140, there's 50, and then paying all the closing costs and stuff, it's 30 to 40
you and your partner would have to be prepared to bring a few bucks to closing. That's all. You know, to buy the new thing, because even if your new purchase was around 140, you'd have to obtain a mortgage, and you'd probably, these days I'm seeing 70% LTV, maybe 75, and that kind of thing. And then you got to factor in closing costs and maybe some work you want to do and that kind of thing. So I would just prepare them for having to bring a few dollars to closing. When I did our last 1031 exchange, the fee to this, you know, custodian, I believe that's what they're called, that holds the proceeds for you, was somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500.
Okay, that's not bad. You know, I was thinking if it was going to be, $8,000 for that, and I could pay $8,000 in taxes, it would be the same. But that doesn't sound too terrible.
No, it's not too crazy, and you can parlay it into larger things. it sounds like for that deal, you might just have to be prepared to bring, some dollars to closing, depending on how big a property you want to get into.
Makes sense. And we do have we put a down payment on that, like a 30% down payment. So we actually have quite a bit like that. We could probably do it. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. I'll tell everyone in a few weeks if I decide to actually do it. So, all right, let's move on. So you guys did the house hack, the duplex. You bought the commercial. How many total units do you have now at rental properties?
Now we have about 115 now.
Wow.
But there's a whole big gap that we haven't gotten to in there.
Yeah, let's get there.
They bought 4, then they bought the 100 units. So
that's right. The end. Right. Yeah. That's how we did it. Yeah. Right. Now we actually kind of plateaued. We had bought the 2 4-families. We had bought the office building. We had bought a few single families here and there and everything like that. And I think we had leveled out at around 30 units. And we started getting into raising private equity for which I'll explain that whole thing. But people started coming in and investing through new LLCs we would set up in properties. And so we started out really, really small. We were buying, our first deal with private equity was 2 single family homes. The guy gave us $50,000. We formed a new LLC. He was a member of the LLC, willing to personally guarantee mortgages and that kind of thing, but not wanting to do any of the things that needed to be done. I did all that. I didn't front any actual cash. He fronted the money, and I did all the things that needed to get done. It was a great partnership. And then he started getting some of his friends in, and we built it till where the last fund that we raised was about $500,000, and we're in the middle of raising $1 million fund right now.
Wow.
And so through doing that, we've been able to buy bigger and bigger properties that I wouldn't have had access to with my own cash. Because honestly, Liz and I were tapped at about 2010, and we wanted to grow the portfolio. The only way to do that was by bringing in more capital.
And I think that's where a lot of investors are at. I mean, that's where I'm at today, right? Like you get to this point where you kind of plateau and you can't get larger because you'll never come up with the $500,000 down payment. I need to go buy a big apartment complex or whatever. And that's when you got to kind of start thinking, I guess, more creatively in that. So maybe you can touch
really quick on that. I mean, like for those of you guys listening, the big guys, like the biggest of the biggest of the biggest, this is how they do this. I mean, a lot of these guys are not just throwing down, hundreds of millions of dollars of their own cash to build these monster complexes and big skyscrapers. I mean, this is how, larger portfolios are built by the big dogs. So, just putting that out there.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Maybe you can explain the difference real quick between, when you're raising money like this, when I want to go out and get money, you mentioned private equity and we mentioned, private lending. Is that the same thing? What's the difference? And when would you use each?
Sure. Private lending is short-term loan, somewhere between 6 to 9 months. We do that on our fix and flips. We typically will have between 1 and 2 fix and flips going at any given time. Or we do a buy, reno, and rent. And on a property. So that'll typically be a small multi or something like that. We'll buy it, fix it up, and then lease it out and then refinance it to refinance the private loan out. But for private loans, I try and be in and out within a short period of time because the interest rates you have to pay, because the money just starts to accrue over time for what you owe these folks and everything like that. And quite frankly, most of the private loans that I deal with are self-directed IRAs. So I want to give them their money back because then they're just going to give it right back to me. And they can't keep the interest, if that makes sense. So if I loan somebody $100,000, somebody loans me $100,000, I pay them back $105 in 5 months or something like that. They have to, their $105 is now there in their account because it's an IRA. They can't touch it, so they're going to loan me back $105. And so I can take the $105, turn it into $112 for them. Then they have $112 to loan me. So my lending pool raises as I do deals with these guys. So that's why I really love doing private loans with self-directed IRAs.
Yeah.
That's that. And the equity piece is a way longer investment. It's typically 5 years is what I tell people they're going to be in for.
Okay. And so those are usually more for, you're going to buy something, fix it up, like a larger property, fix it up, and then refinance it or sell it, like a larger property?
Yeah. Well, it could be, we don't do sales for the private equity. We want them to be, it's more of a cash flow type of thing. So we might go buy like a 10-unit apartment building. We just did a 10-unit apartment building with some private equity. We bought it, did some work to it. But the beauty of it is we just got a mortgage going up front. We didn't have to refinance it. In that we just came in, we had enough private equity to purchase the property, to make the repairs we needed to make, and to go ahead and cash flow. And we just send our investors a quarterly dividend check, and they just own a percentage of the building. And so if the building made a certain amount of money in a quarter, they get a percentage of that, and we just mail them a check.
Well, I think that's the big difference between private lending and private equity. Yeah. Equity, you have partners. And in the private lending side, right, you're in essence,
you're the bank,
folks
right?
are just, exactly.
They're just a bank, right.
Yeah. So how do you structure, and I know this is going to go a little bit above our heads, possibly the listeners' heads, and I don't necessarily want to get into too much detail, and let me take that back. We're not going over everybody's heads, but this can get kind of complicated. So how are you guys generally structuring your private equity deals?
Sure. We use what's called a limited liability partnership. It's very similar to an LLC. It looks almost like an LLC, except for it's called an LLP. And the difference is that there's these limited partners involved, and there's a general partner, which is us. Yeah. The limited partners just have to, their obligation is to put their cash in, and the reason the word limited is in there is they are limited to the amount that they invest. So they can't lose any more than that. Than their investment. Nobody can, if the property ends up not making any money and the bank has to go and repo it, they're not going to come after that person's house. They're not going to come after any of that personal assets. They may come after my personal assets because I had to personally guarantee the loan and that kind of thing. But we are on the hook for the management of the property, and the liability of the property, not the LPs.
So they put up they put up X amount of dollars each. Are you guys putting up cash as well on these deals?
We typically don't, because we add different value to the partnership in that we've got, a track record. I have a management team of 11 people that manage the property, that work directly for my company, that are, employees of my company that I can control and, control the return on investment of the property. We're producing the leads. We're also, it would need to be personally guaranteeing any loans or mortgages that need to go on the property as well. So that's the value we're putting in. And so the structure is, we will typically take anywhere between 20 to 50% of the project. Our LPs get, the other half of that. And I break the percentages down really based on the return I want to see my LPs get. And so the more ownership they get, the better return that they get. And so I kind of look at the numbers to say, okay, well, how can I make a good return for these guys? And what percentage would they be comfortable with to make the money they want to make on this, and the rest is for me.
And what does that end up being typically for you? I mean, what percentage do you usually end up getting out of a deal?
For me?
Yeah,
so
you guys. Well, not you. I mean, I don't mean you. I mean you and Liz, because I'm sure Liz is getting 50% of that deal, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
51.
51.
She better be getting 51.
We're a woman-owned business, so it's 51%.
Oh, that's what we are too. My wife and I. She's 51. Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
You never know, right? Yep. We as the company, as in the partnership, the general partners, let's say, typically take let's say we end up landing around between 20 and 40%, ownership of the project.
Yeah.
For putting nothing down, it sounds pretty good.
It's not bad.
And I think what's key there is a lot of people think, I want to go invest in a deal with no money down. Like, that's the popular phrase, and I'm going to do it. I don't know. The interesting thing is you may not be bringing money, but you are bringing something. And I think you said that great, because, you're bringing expertise, you're bringing the guarantee, you're bringing the deal, probably you're bringing all this stuff together. The cash is the smallest piece of that, so you're still, it really is.
The cash just makes the deal happen, but you still have to have a deal. You have to have management structure. You have to have a lot of things in place to make these things profitable. I mean, the cash is just the vehicle to get it to get it to where you want it to go. So,
well, listen,
go ahead.
Well, really quick. I'm sitting here. I'm running a full-time business, right? I'm working 80 hours, 100 hours a week on some weeks. I don't have time to go out and do portfolio, to shop for property. I don't have time to do any of that stuff. That's where these types of deals come in. I'm not alone in this. There's millions of people just like me who are saying, okay, I'm making 8% in the market. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'm making a quarter of a percent in a bank account.
Yeah.
Where do I park my money? Let me find guys like you who know what you're doing, who've got the track record, who have experience, and can take care of my money and help me out. Now, that said, for the newbies that are listening, you're not going to go and find a 50-unit apartment building and going to be able to raise this kind of money unless you're the best salesman on the planet. You really need to establish some kind of track record and demonstrate that you have the capacity and the understanding in real estate to be able to get people to entrust you with their cash. And so I just want to make sure that we put that out there, because we do see all these people who come on, they're like, I know nothing about real estate, but I have no cash. I got nothing. Exactly. I know nothing. And I want to find a money partner. Who's going to money partner with you? I mean, let's be real here. I know the gurus are teaching that you can do this. It's total BS. It's not going to happen. So, that only happens over time. It really, really does. And so that happens with time, with experience. So I want to make sure that I'm putting it out there to the folks who are listening, that that's the case.
Yep. So I was just saying, Josh, that you're absolutely right. We were in business for 5 years before we even thought about asking for private money or anything like that from anybody, because we wanted to show that we had a track record. We wanted to learn what we needed to learn, because the last thing, I need to be able to sleep at night. Yeah. I need to know that my investors' money's is in or in safe places, and that they're going to see good returns, because I wouldn't be able to live with myself knowing that I went and squandered somebody's cash.
Yeah.
And that, so that's something that I can know that we can do, because we were in business for as long as we were. So what I would say to your listeners, if you have a newbie that's looking to get into this, find someone to apprentice with that is doing this, and that, work underneath them, learn the ropes. If you don't have your own cash, learn the ropes from somebody who's raising private money, private equity, and give them some of your time, because that's another thing that's of value aside from cash. Give them some of your time to help them, build their brand, and then you can learn how to do it, and then you've got a track record.
Yeah. I think a lot of times reputation is kind of contagious, which if you don't have it yourself, if you don't have the experience, you can graft on, maybe the word is, like, to somebody else's experience by doing exactly what you're saying. So when they look at me, they don't see me, they see me and the guy that I'm, tight with, that I've been working with deals, for the last couple of years. So I think that's awesome.
And I'm going to harp on that again. I think that's just a phenomenal point. And the reason it's so good is this. I have people all the time who want to partner with me all the time in my business. And they're like, Josh, I want to partner. I rarely will partner with folks because I realize that the second that I'm in bed with somebody, I'm now in bed with somebody. And when if that guy turns out, that company turns out to be less than what I would want them to be, some standard that's less than what I think is the standard that should be set, that's your reputation that's taking a hit. So if you partner with a money guy who's a scumbag, by the way, you're a scumbag now. Welcome
so are you,
to the world.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, be careful, folks. I mean, you are who you do business with. You really are. And, I can't press upon that enough to people to just be aware, because you don't want to get in bed with somebody shady.
You got to do a lot of research. You got to Google people. You got to ask for references. You got to ask for people they do business with. And, we partner slowly as well, because we've partnered quickly in the past and it didn't pan out, Yeah.
Can you talk about that process? On our last show, show 87, we got into that. And
Nathan Brooks.
He ended up in a really bad partnership that cost him pretty dearly. And so I'd like to, I guess, talk about how do you vet folks? I mean, you said, you do the Google searches and you do all this stuff, but, and you kind of get into bed slowly, but maybe you can walk us through that process. I especially for newer investors, how would you recommend they, if somebody says, hey, I got money, and you're like, oh, cool. Well, I'm desperate for money. Great. You don't just jump into bed with them, right? I mean, what's the process that I should follow to start working with this person? What would you do?
Trust is obviously critical. Actually, the first money partner that we developed was somebody that I went to college with. And I met him for coffee. We were, just kind of reconnecting, saying hello to each other and seeing how each other's doing. And he said, oh, what are you guys up to? And I think that's also for newbies, just share what you're up to. That's always a great way to, who knows, get your next money partner. Yeah. But I was sharing with him and he said, I want to also invest. I'd love to talk to you both. So he came out to, to Trenton, and we both, met with him. But it was a slow partnership. So number one, take it slow. Number two, really get a sense of who this person is, whether it's references or just going to networking meetings with them. I mean, I'm from the employment world, so I always said hire slowly, fire quickly. And that's the same thing with money partners. Move slowly and then you can grow faster, but don't do it too fast, especially if somebody wants to give you money quickly. That's probably not a good money partner anyway.
Yep.
So number one, obviously, like I said, you want to have that trust level. Number two, move slowly. Number three, I would say start out on a small deal together. Matt and our money partner didn't buy an apartment building initially or anything. We bought a single family home. It was a very small amount of money. Even new money partners that we're developing now always want to give us a small amount and say, if this works well, we'll grow and grow together. And I think that's also a good sign of a money partner. If they want to give you a lot of money initially, they don't know you and they want to move fast. That
smells funny.
Yeah, something smells funny. So
do you guys run background checks, by the way? Just
on money, but for people that are looking to invest with us, I wouldn't say that. But for people that we've done business with, there's sometimes that I wish I would have done that. But we haven't done that in the past. But if there were a new partner that wasn't just putting cash in, I definitely would look into that. But
like criminal and all that stuff, huh?
Yeah, we have access to that kind of thing now. I mean, it's interesting to know, right? I mean, to what their background is. To add on to what Liz said, I would just say that just simply like good people typically know good people, and so. Our, one guy that was our first investor that Liz went to college with, knew other good people. And so he had known these people for a long time and was able to give good references for them as well. So I tend to try and keep it within my network for the most part, and if it's not in my network, then I take a long time to, sniff them and vet them out and that kind of thing. So
makes sense.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, can we transition a little bit? I know we're hitting on the 45-minute mark here pretty much, and there's a lot more I want to talk about, but employees and running a business, a company, right? You guys have multiple employees, I've heard. How many do you have right now?
11.
Okay. So I guess, again, because I'm selfish, I'm at this point in my business where I have to like scale up or scale down. And I've been saying this for, months now. And, I guess, how do you know it's the right time to start hiring employees, and who do you hire?
And we're talking employees versus using other, like a company, like hiring your own property manager in-house versus hiring an outside management company, or hiring your own bookkeeper in-house versus, shopping out to an outside. I think, is that more specifically what you're asking for, Brandon?
Sure. Either way. I mean, that's all part of it because I have to do something no matter what. So, or just get rid of all my properties.
Right.
And then move to Denver,
and hang out at a co-working space with Josh.
I've heard that before. Right? So I believe it was on one of your podcasts, or maybe I heard it somewhere else, but I think that the magic number is around 30 units. Is where you can swing an in-house employee or an in-house operator to help you run the business in that. So I think that that's where it really shifted for us, is once we got above 30, then we could swing to start doing things in-house. Before that, there really just wasn't enough revenue coming in to support another paycheck. Whether it's a W-2 paycheck or even a 1099, whatever it is, we would just outsource everything that came in under 30 units. You got to meet like handyman and that kind of stuff that can be your go-tos for things, and they hire the bookkeeper for as many hours as you need them and everything like that. Once we got above 30, we started bringing in-house employees and that's when it started making sense. As we added more units, it justifies hiring more people once we purchase more.
So why do you think it's better, at least in your life? Why did you decide to go with hiring your own in-house staff versus just some third-party property manager? Like, why'd you go that route?
Well, we have a certain vision for our company. We have we're trying to create a culture among our employees, and we're hoping that rubs off on our tenants to a point, and our investors as well. So we wanted to create more than just this thing that just made cash flow. We're trying to create a business with a culture. We have a mantra for our company, which is transforming lives through real estate, and we really believe that. We have quarterly meetings with our employees and that. But the bottom line to your question is, I can control it and manage it. If they're my people, and I can, they're employees, so I can kind of tell them what to do and give them the parameters to operate within and everything like that. And it's very easy. Much easier to control a culture than it is for, all independent contractors that work for somebody else the next day. So.
Do you have your own contractors in house, or do you outsource that, like your maintenance and repairs and stuff?
We have mostly our own people in house that try and do as much maintenance and repairs as we can. But we also outsource things like major plumbing, electrical, licensed work, and that kind of stuff. We're not licensed yet. We're working on getting our contractors licensed actually, so we can pull our own permits and that kind of jazz. But we sub out the big stuff and we do the small stuff in house.
Cool. All right. So you've got 11 employees. I want to find out who was the first hire and who are the 11.
Okay.
I don't need their names, but
we can bring them all in.
Bill, Tony, here's Maria.
We'll get them all in the room. We'll talk to them. Here's the background. Yeah. You can interview all of them. So our first hire was our office manager. We started out as our bookkeeper, and she has been fantastic. And she really started doing the books, and then grew more into really running the property management division of the company. We also have I call her my tenant relations manager. So when tenants call in with a maintenance emergency, or when we have to collect rents, or when communications need to happen to tenants, it comes through the tenant relations manager.
Lease signings.
Yeah, lease signings. Yeah. There you go. Renewals. She creates leases. She also runs out and shows properties and that. So she's really like the point of contact between tenants and the business. So she's the go-to for anything they need. That's who they call. Then you've got the office manager who she reports to. You've got my head of construction. We have because we do fix and flips. So I have a guy that runs all of our fix and flips in an apartment. Turns around, it goes into the construction department, and those folks go and turn it around. Now in the construction department, there's a handful of employees that do everything from demolition to painting to sheetrock to minor plumbing and that kind of stuff. They do a lot of their time is spent either on a fix and flip or turning an apartment. And we're able to maintain that many people because we have a volume of either, unfortunately vacancies or fix and flips that we're in the middle of.
How many guys is that, or guys and gals? How many people is that in construction?
We have gals too in construction, by the way. So that is, let's see, I got to do the numbers. I believe that's 7.
Okay. Oh, so the bulk of your team is construction.
Yeah, it is. Because that's, for fix and flips, we found that we can manage the process if we do as much of it in-house as we can.
Got it.
Yep. I think that's wise. I think how you're trying to find good contractors is really tough.
So we have bookkeeper, we have tenant relations, then we have the 7, so that's at 9. Well, who are the other 2?
Yeah, well, yeah, me and my business, my construction manager Adam, who also has a % ownership of the company as well.
Gotcha.
So
okay,
I'm counting myself in that 11 as well, because I pay myself
sure.
as a W-2 salary on top of passive income from the investments. I do take a W-2 income too.
Sure. No, that's great. And it seems like I guess your tenant relations manager really is your property manager. / Then you have the whole construction team, you got the office manager, and then you're doing the deal finding, you're doing the fundraising, and pretty much handling the money side of things.
And managing the different departments.
And you call me like a half of an employee, I guess.
Oh, you're an employee. You're an employee and a half.
I'm not actually getting W-2s.
She's really just an owner.
Well, I'm not getting W-2,
right.
but like one of my major projects is helping the property management team kind of firm up our processes, and really get a really strong process. We have pieces of the puzzle, obviously, but we're at the point where I just need to kind of button that up more. So, in essence, trying to take some things off their plate, because we have a lean team in-house, so to speak. So that's one of my jobs.
Okay, cool. Hey, how do you find good employees?
That's a good question. I wish I knew.
Well, I'll take
I love my employees.
Yeah.
I do.
There's so many ways to find good people. I think one of the key pieces actually is to identify and get really clear on your culture and who it is that you're actually looking for, the type of person. And then specifically get then clear on the job itself. So in essence, writing a job description. One of the big things that Matt and I and our other partner, Adam, had done earlier in the year was literally write job descriptions for every single position. So if we hired a service technician, we're calling a maintenance person. We're hiring this tenant relations manager, what have you. You have a really clear job description. And then once you have a clear job description, in that job description, get really clear on what skills this person needs. And beyond skills, because this is my expertise and the other work that I was involved in, the consulting work, is what type of behaviors does this person need to have? You don't want a whole team of extroverts or introverts. You don't want a whole team of dominant people, because you know what? They're all going to want control. So how do you really create a diverse team, not just of skills and experience, but quite honestly, behavior? And, you don't need people all trying to be followers when no one's leading the team, and we've talked about that multiple times running construction sites and how, no one knew who was on first base type of thing. No one knew who was in charge. Yeah. Different circumstances in our career. So getting clear on the job and then getting clear on the job ad and really writing a really helpful ad we're going through this right now. We're doing some hires, and I took what Matt and Adam came up with and kind of doctored it up to say, not just there's so many jobs available. You got to make yours different and really make it specific around your culture and the kind of team that you're hiring, and that these people are going to be passionate about what they do. They're not just going to get a job. We don't want people just, taking a job
be part of something. Yeah.
They want to be part of something bigger and getting clear on that vision of transforming lives. I mean, it's a big one.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It's funny. I'd say for the last year, I've probably spent, I don't think there's been any point in which we haven't been hiring. Yeah. We're constantly hiring right now. And Brandon keeps saying to me, that this is the rest of our lives running this company is you're just going to constantly be hiring. And it's fascinating. It really is a fascinating, challenging process. And I really appreciate what you guys talked about on collaborating on the descriptions and the tasks. And that's something that we've done as well with our description. But what we haven't done enough of is the last thing that you said, which is diversifying yourself, making yourself stand out more. How do you do it? Above and beyond. Like for us, hopefully we do it by saying you're part of this amazing company that's changing people's lives. Here's how we do it, and here's what our culture is in that. But I think there's even more, and I think being able to know what your culture is and what your company does and how you stand out is really the key. And I think a lot of folks who are in that process struggle with that. What do we stand for? What makes us different? I got a boutique, I got a retail shop. Why are we any different than the other retail shops? Obviously for this case in building an investment company, what makes my investment company better than the next one? So something for folks to think about and write down if you haven't written your goals, your vision, all that stuff. I mean, it's really important.
It's got to be more than making money. Yeah. That can't be the only reason why you want to get into this business or what you want to create out of the business.
I'd also just add too on the hiring part is a lot of employers will say, well, I'm hiring and people aren't staying in the positions. I would say that partially it could be a hiring problem. It also could be a managing problem.
Yeah.
And actually a motivating problem. So you also often hear people don't leave companies, they leave people.
Yeah.
And not that everyone that leaves is about the person, but how you managing people, how you motivating people. Something that Matt instituted with his team, and something that was a suggestion I had, was to meet on a monthly basis with your team. Take them out to lunch one-on-one. What's coming up for you? How are things going? And communication is everything. So yeah, you can hire right, but then managing that and really keeping the team motivated and aligned is actually harder. It's easier to hire the right person, in my opinion. It's harder to actually manage and maintain, because that's really where that's I think the biggest challenges for any small employer or any big employer.
Yeah.
I know I'm terrible at managing employees, and that really is the thing that's prevented me from hiring more people and building up a team, is because I just know that my weakness in life is telling people what to do. I'm really bad at it. And so until I figure that part out, maybe that's the only way to figure that out, is by doing it. But yeah, I mean, it took me like a year to get rid of my resident manager, who was like a sexist pig that was like, I mean, it was terrible. And it took me a year to get rid of him because I'm just terrible at managing. So I don't know. That's what's presented me. I'm people have different personalities, and I'm definitely a peacemaker, and I have trouble.
Yeah,
you're too nice.
I'm a pushover. Okay,
yeah,
I said it.
Too nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have one more question before we go. Before we kind of start to wrap things up, and that is, what does your future look like? I mean, where are you guys headed? Where do you see your investment business going forward?
Sure. So we want to continue. We've been doing really well raising the private equity, and we want to continue to do that. And we want to buy, larger and larger properties. We our biggest one so far has been an 18 unit, but we'd like to do, we've looked at a 22 unit. We're looking at even bigger stuff, 30, 40, 50 units and that kind of thing on the investment side, because we've gotten pretty good at raising money, and we have a really good presentation, and it makes sense for investors to come in with us in that. So that's definitely one direction we want to go. For the fix and flips, we didn't even get so much to this, but it's become very frustrating with fix and flips in unexpected costs, and how a fix and flip can really go upside down really fast. We did one property, we found out that one entire side of the house had been eaten alive by termites.
Oh, man.
It was all gone. It so cost us an extra $8,000 we didn't budget for to reframe this whole side of the house. So what we're getting into is modular homes. We want to start doing, instead of fix and flips, buying a piece of land and building a modular home on the piece of land and putting it up for sale that way, because it's a good way to, create a home for sale. But most things are predictable in a modular versus a fix and flip. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And I'd say the third arm of our business, which I'm kind of heading up and leading, is creating some educational opportunities. We have a lot of folks that come to us like, hey, how did you do this? How did you do that? So we're kind of excited about, my background's training and development. So kind of creating some ways to be of help to people and educate. So that's the other kind of new area of our business.
Yeah.
What do you guys know, just really, really quickly, have you ever heard of like this new thing now where they're printing houses? Have you seen this stuff?
I just saw that online the other day. I read an article.
Is it with the 3D printer stuff?
Yeah. So they have like I think I saw it in China. They've built these demo houses that are printed. They're literally printed with like some kind of concrete amalgam of something around and literally you can blueprint the sucker, and these monster machines, the huge things, right? And they literally print a house. It's amazing.
What a crazy world we live in.
That's wild.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the next part, which is the.
It's time for the fire round.
All right, the fire round. These questions all come straight from the BiggerPockets forums, which you can go and engage on right now by going to biggerpockets.com/forums. And you should. So first question is, am I crazy, don't answer that yet, to start flipping a property when winter is about to begin?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it depends on how long construction is going to take. I think that if you create a product of really good value, I had one house that sold that went under contract between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and everybody says, "Oh no, nobody wants to move and nobody wants to look at houses in that time of year and everything like that." So I don't think that you're crazy. I just think that you need to plan for it, and you need to create value in the property, because people need to move all the time. There's always somebody looking for a house. You just got to have something that stands out and that is going to pop for the perhaps fewer population that's going to be looking for houses around that time. So you're not crazy.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll wait for a doctor to verify. But,
Yeah. Right. Turns out. Yeah.
what would you do if you were just starting out again with 25,000? Yeah, $25,000. How would you build a business?
I'll take that.
Sure.
I think you hear a lot of folks, I've been trying to get more into the forums, answering questions and what have you, and just learning. It's a great place to learn and develop your knowledge and skills. But, a lot of things I've seen out there, a lot of newbies will say, what deals should I get into? I have exactly what you just said, Josh. I have this amount of money. What deals, what areas should I invest in? Before you go there, I think, getting really clear on your why. Why are you investing in real estate? I think I wrote this in one of the blogs that we write. And I keep going back to it because you can look for deals and what have you and find the best strategy on real estate investing. But if you're going to have challenges, we put a roof on a house that ended up having to get teared down. When we first started. I mean, we made a lot of mistakes over the years.
Sure.
And you have to come back to some sort of, what are we doing this for? And we both align. So becoming really clear and digging deep for newbies, I think, is something that I don't see a lot of people doing. And they get challenges and then they move on. And I think real estate's such a wonderful way to invest that it's a shame that people move on and don't actually stick with it. So, and then developing a plan. And I'd also say with that $25,000 and developing a plan and then getting into whether it's a single family home or a multifamily or whatever your strategy is, become really good at it. I think one of the biggest challenges we had was that we got involved in a commercial property. We got involved with a residential property. Matt didn't share this earlier, but we also bought a development, property on a development, piece of land. So we were all over the place. And that's probably one of our biggest challenges when we started. So become good at something and do it over and over and over again until you have mastered it and then move on to something else. So many people get involved with so many things initially. And I think that's one thing we would have done differently was really mastered the multifamily and just done it over and over and over again. It's not sexy, but it's predictable and it's where your success comes from. So that's just another side note.
That's great. That's great. All right. Third question. Do you have any suggestions for how to turn down a tenant with bad rental history? What do you normally tell them?
We just you got to have protocol. I mean, there's procedures on that. You got to just write them a letter. I mean, you got to have a form letter on file that says, here's why we didn't accept you, and you check off a few boxes. It depends on if they have an eviction or if just whatever it may be. But you should first of all, I think that by law you have to have what your standards are for rental. In the lovely state of New Jersey, you do. In that, so we have rental standards here, and in PA for our rentals in Pennsylvania as well. And so if we reject someone, it's simply because they didn't meet our rental standard. And so we have a form letter that has those things lined out, and we just check off the boxes that it didn't match, and we just send them the letter.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's, what, I think that's a great thing for folks who are living anywhere that may not have rental standards, really standardizing it because it protects you from, having people come after you for, discrimination or whatever else. Yeah. Here's our 20 different standards. Here's the things you have to live up to. You fail because you're missing on 1, 7, and 12. Great. Right. Done and done. Yeah. Nice. Cool. Investing in low-income areas. Is this a good way to make money or something that newer investors should avoid?
It depends on management. If if you don't have a thick enough skin to go and, sometimes there's people you have to deal with in lower income areas that you may not want to, if you're not prepared to go into those areas yourself and, do a showing or whatever it is. If you're just getting started, odds are you may have to do a little bit of the doing in the beginning unless you've got a property manager that can do all that for you. If you've got a property manager that can handle everything soup to nuts and you're willing to pay them to do it, then of course move forward with it. But if you don't, you should be prepared to do it yourself. But I don't have a problem with that per se for our business. We do that. We invest in lower income areas, but there's plenty of good people that want to live in areas like that. They just happen to make lower income.
Yeah.
But we've never invested in an area where we're not comfortable going.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Maybe not comfortable going at midnight. I mean that but that's a little different.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable going anywhere.
I've got to be able to go there. I mean, a lot of our investments are in Trenton, and there's parts of Trenton that are dicey, but we don't do work in that areas because not only do I not want to go there, I don't send my people. I don't want to send my people there either. So
isn't that where Chris Christie lives? Yeah. That's a dicey part of town.
Here. I think he does business here. I doubt he lives here, but yeah, it is.
Funny. All right. Last question from the fire round. What is your biggest horror story when it comes to rehabbing a property?
Oh man, that's softball.
Where do you start? Where do you start, Brandon?
I think I put that on the forum so that you would ask me that question. But so I'll be as concise as I can. We bought this property. It's actually in the town we lived in, and I kept driving past it and saying, like, man, somebody's going to do something about that house, because it was this old dilapidated property, and I just said, somebody's going to do something. I said, you know what? I'm going to do something about that house. I'm going to look into it. And I had a title company that was looking for some business from me, and so I gave them the address. They looked into it, and through a bunch of jumping around, I found out that the guy that owned it didn't know he owned it, because he was the grandson of the owner of record. The guy lived all the way up in Poughkeepsie, New York. But the long story short, the owner of record of the property had actually died in 1964 and had allowed a cousin of his to live in this house until like 1985, and then a sister of his moved in. So a lot of rigmarole on taking ownership of the property first and foremost. Then once we closed, we got sued by a tax lien holder, and we had to go to court immediately after closing and had to pay something like another $10,000 after purchasing this property, right, to this tax lien holder who just had a bunch of these attorneys on staff that it cost them nothing to take me to court, but it cost me like, $2,000 a day to go to court against these guys. So I just paid them to make them go away. Then we got into the property and started to fix it up. And we put, as Liz alluded to earlier, we put a new roof on it and everything like that, and did all the gut work. And we realized, wait a minute, this property has a bunch of water damage. And it's now, we found out that like the back of the property was sitting on dirt. There was no foundation in a lot of this house. Nice. It's what they did back then, I guess, right? It's awesome. So we ended up having to tear this property down to the ground and build a new house on this site. We had already gone about halfway through the rehab, and we ended up having to demo this pretty new roof that we had to put on the property. We had to take that off, and all this framing that we had done and everything like that. Take it all down.
And this is right when Matt quit his job. I said, "What are you doing?"
That was right after I quit my day job to do this full time. So it was fantastic. We ended up building a brand new single family home, this beautiful house on this site that we sold. We lost money on the deal on that sale, but because what we learned, which is what I would tell the folks out there, is that we learned a bunch on that deal that I still apply today. So now I know how to stick frame a house because I did it. And I know what not to do on a fix and flip, because I pretty much did all the things you're not supposed to do on my very first fix and flip. So
wow, get it out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah, do it all the mistakes on the first one.
Nice. Well, you stuck it out, and now you guys are doing great. So there you have it. Awesome. Cool. Well, that was Fire Round. Lots of good questions. Great stuff. Why don't we move on to the
Famous Four?
All right, the Famous Four. These questions we ask every single guest. So you guys know what's coming, I'm sure. First question is, and we'll ask each of you separately if you want to answer separately if you have different answers. But first one is, what is your favorite real estate book?
Sure, I'll take that first. I would say the kind of the follow-up from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was called Cash Flow Quadrant. And it was a wonderful book to get clear on not just cash flow, but what kind of person and what kind of business do we want to create. It basically puts, employees and self-employed and becoming an investor, and it really gives you the ins and outs. And when we created our business, we kept thinking, are we an E? And we use those words to this day. And it goes into some specifics about real estate, but I would say just from a thinking about real estate, it was by far one of the best books.
Nice.
So
great.
What about you, Matt? I would throw out a book by Dolph DeRoos called Real Estate Riches. And he was one of, Rich Dad advisors, many, many, many years ago. But he told some great stories in that book, and it really opened up me to the possibility of real estate investing as well.
Cool. Right on. What about business books? Liz? Yeah,
I would say E-Myth by Michael Gerber is a great way to think about your business, so you don't become one of those, they say, technicians who becomes the business. And we all want to get into real estate because it's hands off and we don't have to do anything. Well, we all know that you have to do a lot of things. But bottom line is that you start to build something, processes, systems, et cetera. And that's exactly how we've thought about our business. How do we build this so it doesn't need us? And we're not there yet. We're far from there, but we're getting closer and we're moving towards it, which is key.
Concept though to build it.
So great book to read early on.
Nice. Yeah. What about you, Matt?
I would have to go for The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind.
T. Harv.
Yeah, T-Harv. We did the Millionaire Mind Intensive weekend as well, but that's just one of those. It's just one of those things about shifting your consciousness around the way that you view money. And for Liz and I, just reading that book and just really examining what he calls your money blueprint and everything like that, and just really taking a look at how money is in my consciousness. It was great. So.
Right on.
Cool.
Right on. What about hobbies, guys? What do you guys do for fun?
Nothing. No, we don't.
Business.
Hang out with our 9-month-old. He's our new hobby. But I would say, for me, I love playing tennis. I love kind of training for races. I haven't done one in a while, but I've done some marathons and things like that, and triathlons and things.
Oh, good for you on that.
Those have gone down a little bit since having my little guy, but I want to train for something in the spring. So
cool.
That's for me.
What about you, Matt?
Ditto for me. Yeah,
okay.
I did my first triathlon this summer, and and just spending time with my son and with my wife outside of work, and not talking about work for a little while is a good enough hobby for now. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great.
All right, final question from me for the day. What do you believe sets apart successful real estate investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. There's so many ways to answer that, and bottom line, it's perspective. Because there's so many times I can look over the last 10 years that were so many reasons for us just to kind of say, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And just to kind of get back into the game and make it better. And Matt we don't go into properties now, and we don't take roofs off and then we don't make that mistake anymore. So you really have to have perspective and a positive perspective, and not just positive, but like a realistic perspective as well. And just keep making things better. That's critical. If you don't do that, I wouldn't get involved in investing in real estate, because we continue to make mistakes, but we continue to keep our perspective positive and solution oriented.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's great. That's great. Well, listen, guys, we really, really, really appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Yeah.
We thank you so much for the time, and lots of good, pretty high level stuff here on the show. So it was, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah, where can folks find out more about you or find more about you? Do you have a website that you guys have for your business?
Our business's website is derosagroup.com, and Liz and I also have active profiles on BiggerPockets as well.
Cool.
And we're also weekly bloggers for the site, so we'd love to hear from people.
Yeah, leave comments, man. You guys, these guys are putting out really good content, so definitely share your feedback with them on their posts. Well, thanks again, guys. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
We'll see you back on the site.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys, that was show 88 of the BiggerPockets podcast with Matt and Liz Faircloth. Big thanks to those guys again. Really, really cool show with some higher level knowledge shared and some really, really good advice. So we certainly appreciate it.
I'm like totally motivated now to go get like a bookkeeper or something.
Dude, 88 shows, man. It's about time.
I know. It's really bad.
You'll do it. You'll do it. Next show. Everybody's busting my chops about the book that I'm on page 175 of. That's a drop in the bucket compared to you not going and hiring out a bookkeeper or finding somebody to do this.
I'm going to go call that bench company today and just see what they can do. So
do it. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, anyway, guys, thanks again for listening. Show 88. If you're not a member yet of BiggerPockets, we'd certainly urge you to do so. You get to hang out with guys and gals like Matt and Liz who are spending time in the community, helping other investors out, linking up with, partnering, and doing business with other folks. So the more active you are, the more folks like these will get to see you, get to know you, and want to work with you. So I definitely encourage that. Otherwise, as I always say, check us out on all the various social networks. And if you have not yet done so, please take a minute or two and jump over to iTunes, find the BiggerPockets podcast, and leave us a rating or review. Those certainly come in handy and help us get more people listening and help us, get more people educated into real estate, doing better deals. So help us out if you can. That's all I got. How about you, Brandon? We done?
We're done. Let's get out of here.
Close it down.
I got a bookkeeper to call.
Awesome. This is Josh Dorkin signing off.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.